The next session regarding the Professional Services Tool Suite will be discussing the sales tools, which consists of a suite of tools that allow multiple other changes to the SQL table inside Dynamics GP. So the Customer Combiner tool is really straightforward. You will click the little radio button and hit Next. And that brings up a screen where you can choose the starting customer. And let's just say it's Adam Park Resort, and I want to combine into customer number Advanced Paper Company, and I hit convert. So before running this process, you need to make a SQL backup. I mentioned earlier that every time you get ready to make these kind of changes, the system is going to prompt you to make a backup. So we do that. The Customer Combiner is finished. So what it did is it took all of the historical transactions from Adam Park and combine it with the transactions from Advanced Paper. So a very quick process there, and it will provide a report to you that looks like this, and it shows you the Customer Combiner combined this company with this company. So that's the Customer Combiner. The next one is the Customer Modifier. Even though you have physically changed the customer information, the modifier needs to be ran so that you'll notice here in this screen, the starting customer number here is going to be Advanced Paper, and I want to give Advanced Paper a new number. So you would say ADVAN01, for instance. And at this particular time, I'll just hit convert, and it will go ahead and convert this customer to this customer. This is the customer ID number in the system. Now we've also modified the customer ID by hitting the convert button. And then the next thing we have to do is do a customer name modifier. Now, just to make sure you understand the difference between customer name modifier and if you were to go over to Dynamics GP and type in cards, sales, customer, you as an end user can change this customer name anytime you want to be anything you want it to be. But that's a one-off change. That means anything from this point forward will reflect this new change. It will not, at this point, if you were to change it in this manner, it will not go back and make any historical change to any reports. So what the Customer Combiner and Name Changer will do, it's called the Customer Name Modifier. You'll hear, you can pick up your customer, and now you can come in and put the new name here and hit convert, and it will go back and make historical transactional changes to everywhere that name was found in your database. So that's what that tool does. The next one is using Receivables Master Record triggers. As I did with the General Ledger, if you come into the system and pick the Receivables Master Trigger icon there, then again you can go ahead and copy one database from the other. In this case, you would be creating customers. And you saw that earlier where I could do all three at once, or I can do it specific to a series inside Dynamics GP. So I'll get out of that screen and go back to my presentation here. Using Receivables Transaction Unapply. This should get your attention. Have you ever gone and made a transaction inside GP? You've applied a payment and then you came back later and you said, oh my gosh, I've applied that payment in error. And so there's been all kinds of things you've had to do to reverse the payment, set up the invoice, reapply a payment, and you know, it's quite a lengthy process. Now, that being said, you can take the tool called Receivables Management Transaction Unapply and pull up your customer record, and you'll notice in the right hand side of the screen here there's applied check mark. So if you want to unapply the payment that was applied to invoice 3008, all you need to do is hit unapply, and then the system will automatically create a report comes up to screen, and it will show the transaction receivables apply document. That's your general ledger side of it. And then you've got an analytical accounting side of it from an edit listing. And then you have a report that comes up and shows unapplied documents report. So it takes a payment number 275 that was made historically, unapplies that, and makes it so you can apply that payment to another account. I'm sorry, another invoice. Another tool under the sales suite is the Salespersons Modifier. A Salespersons Modifier tool is the little button here, Salespersons Modifier, and I hit Next. And up pops your screen that lets you pick your salesperson. Maybe it's Lynn Jensen here, and I give that person a new salesperson's ID. This comes into play, of course, if somebody's been married. If you want to maybe change a salesperson from one area to another, then you can go ahead and hit the Convert button after you put the name in here, and it will go back historically and make all those changes as well. And there's another one. It's called the Using Sales Order Processing Customer Item Lookup. And what that one is if you go ahead and go to the tool, one thing as a global on these tools, if there's a little check boxes I've got here, 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 and I've got these two checked off, I could have one over here, and then I've got these here. If these are checked, you don't have the option of doing this process. These are processes that are behind the scenes. If I try and do it, the next is all grayed out. So I'll explain this to you in just a second. So under the SOP customer item lookup, it's not a process that takes place, it's a setting at the database level. So if you go into GP and you go to transactions, sales transaction entry, and you go ahead and do, say, an invoice, and you pick a customer that you want the invoice to be processed against, there's an additional field that opens up, and it's called the historical lookup. And so by clicking that little box, you can now type in the item that you want to find on an invoice. Wherever it appears, it'll show up in the screen below. This is not a lookup. You need to know the item that you're looking for, and maybe it's an answering machine from Panasonic and whatever it is, and this doesn't exist. But if it did exist, then you would hit your enter key, and it would bring back a screen with all of the invoices that was sold against. So that is called the Sales Order Processing Customer Item Lookup. And then we've got the Territory Modifier. Again, it's in yellow, so it has to be a supervisor that logs in to do this. So let's go back to the tool here. Territory Modifier. It gives you the option to do next. So now I'll modify a territory ID. Mine are just 1, 2, 3, 4 through 8. But if I wanted to do this, I could say this territory 1 is now going to be Eastern. And I can convert that. Now if I look up here, territory 1 is gone, and I've got Eastern showing up here. So that's the territory modifier. The other one that we wanted to talk about is the territory combiner. Same kind of thing, but what this does is you start with like the Eastern Territory, which is Illinois, and if I look up here, it's Illinois and Missouri, and I want to combine that territory into another region. I would do a lookup and say I want to combine that in territory 2, hit the convert, and all the sales information associated with the Eastern would now be rolled into territory number 2. And depending upon the size of your database, it could take as few as 5 minutes to maybe an hour, depends on the transactional volume. So at this point, the last this ends the section under Sales Tools under Professional Services Tools Suite.